Welcome to the Raise podcast. I'm Carol Barwick. We're here to raise your confidence and inspire your creativity. Each episode, we will have a different guest who will be discussing our Raise word. The Raise word is a word that will encourage you or empower you and at times inspire you to explore the word a little more for yourself. Well, hello everybody and welcome to the Raise podcast. I'm Carol Barwick. Season 3 has seen us discuss some really interesting words. We've looked at try and we've looked at numerous other things, but today we've got a really interesting word, a word that you might think is really simple, but actually we're going to unpack it in a really exciting way. And that's because we're going to speak to a former Bake Off contestant. Now, Karen Wright, I've missed a trick here because if I'd met you in person, there might have been cake involved, but we're online. I didn't do very well there, did I? Morning, Karen.
Carol, good morning. No, I don't generally make cakes these days. I mean, it's a fallacy that we're all mad on cake. I personally haven't got a sweet tooth. So when my daughters come home, which will be, in fact, this weekend, I've got grown-up girls, they often obviously come back. And they're always teasing me, really, because they'll say, I can't believe it. Bake Off Karen and not a bun in the house, not a cake anywhere to be seen. So
it could have been a massive disappointment. So thank goodness.
Yes.
Thank goodness. Karen, welcome. You're anything but a disappointment. And I'm so excited to talk to you this morning. And obviously on the podcast, we always ask the guest what word they'd like to talk about. And you said the word ask. So, yeah. So before we dive into all that means, what does the word ask mean to you?
Well, ask means a few different things. It depends on where you are in your life, really. But currently, I'm reaching out to people for support.
Yeah.
So I'm asking for help in many areas, really, and that makes me feel much more sort of part of a team, and I'm happy to show my vulnerability, really, on that, and receive the support that I need at the moment. So currently, I'm asking for help. That's where I am at just now. But we'll talk in the podcast. Obviously, I think it's got far more facets to it than that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful that you're asking for help. Listeners will know that this is kind of linked to a Facebook group. And so what we do is we literally ask about the word in the Facebook group day after day. And a lot of people have been talking today, particularly about how difficult it is to ask for help. So what was it that made you happily reach out and ask for support?
Well, we all need help throughout our lives. Sometimes we're given the help without asking, and sometimes we perhaps don't feel that we need the help and people impose it upon us. But definitely in the last few years, from Bake Off, I was on the Bake Off, as you said, and that is 5 years ago. And my life has become very different and new and out of my comfort zone. Most of the time I'm doing that, swimming along like mad with like the gliding swan and my feet with that. So I've had to find my way through quite a wilderness of new experiences, and I have tried at times to battle my way through it and not ask for help until I felt really, really, really in need. But when I have asked for help, I've discovered actually that people are very happy to give it, and they feel part of certainly with the Bake Off journey, which was a bit of a secret. So, if you like, when I knew that I was on the Bake Off, they send you the briefs so that you practice what you're going to do, or you decide how you're going to fit the brief, should I say. So they tell you what it's going to be. So let me take you an example, one of the really, really difficult ones. They were all difficult, of course. So every Friday we received an email. Once we'd been picked to go on the show, we got a brief every week. and we had to decide. And week 5, they said, this is going to be a biscuit chandelier, a huge biscuit chandelier. It's going to hang from the ceiling, and it's going to be this long and this heavy, and it's got to wow, and it's got to have construction elements. And I was getting beyond I was looking at this email and thinking, I don't even understand this. What
Yeah. You mean you've never made a biscuit chandelier,
no,
Karen?
I mean, it's not
Where have you
something that
been? Like, I'm making them every week.
all the time. I'm sure I missed a trick on that, but no, not me. And of course, I'd already done 4 showstoppers in the lead up, and so I was starting to get really bogged down in a way, and it's
Yeah.
an anxious time. So I was really at my wits' end, and that's the key time when I really, really asked the people in my family. So that was my husband and my 2 daughters. I said, I don't know, I don't understand. In fact, this is now going so far over my head, I can't even read the words properly. So that was an example of when all of us gave our different skills,
Yeah.
and interpretations and help. So, my husband, he's of an engineering background, so he sort of understood when this talks about structural support, and he had
Yeah.
some good ideas
Yeah.
how to build that in and how it would stand up. So that was that. So off we went to garden centres looking for chicken wire and various things that he'd got in thought, ribbons and lots of stuff.
Yeah.
And my these 2 wonderful daughters, both very different. One's so creative that she makes the costumes, or it's on the team for the masked singer and masked dancer. That's she was making a bear's foot
Right.
yesterday.
Next podcast episode. Right. I'm writing that down. That's good.
So she does that. So she's so creative. So she's very
Wow.
artistic. Now
Okay.
my other daughter, she's got many degrees. She's a doctor of philosophy. She's very, very so. Between us, we all have these different things to give to the project. And of course, as soon as I could understand where we were going with it, I felt immediately empowered and better to continue with that. And I did it.
Yeah.
Wasn't my best bake, but it did hang, and it
Yeah.
did fit the brief. And that was because I asked for that help. I didn't. If I hadn't done, I think I would have just collapsed under the stress of it by then. So loads in the Bake Off. But then after the Bake Off, of course, as I've already said, I've moved on to pastures new, just culminating recently I've got a new book. It published it itself, which is this time last year. I had no idea that I was going to do that, and that has required me to ask
Yeah.
a great deal. And I've been asking this morning before we did the recording of the podcast. I've been asking for help again, and
Yeah.
now I'm used to it, and it's great, and we feel like a team. And I've
Brilliant.
acknowledged that in my book at the end. I've said, I asked these people, my team, and between us, we got this to print, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that. So asking, yeah, I mean, we can talk about. I know about how to ask questions as well. That's a different aspect of asking,
Yes. Yeah.
isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Let's just unpack that a little bit. So
Yeah,
first
of
of all, the
course.
beauty of allowing all the different family members into that amazing project of a biscuit chandelier. And I think there's got to be quite an amount of humility in asking, I think, because your husband could have taken you to 180 garden centres, at which point you said, you know what, I can't do this anymore. This is too many garden centres. I don't want you involved. Or your daughters could have come up with something and you just said, no, that's
Can't
never going to
accept
work.
it. I don't understand that. It's not.
Absolutely. But your humility allowed them all to give in the right way. And then
Yes, and then I fulfill
completed
the
it,
project. Then
which
it's
is
right. I mean,
wonderful.
it's a
Yeah.
wonderful thing to show your vulnerability to people. I think
Yeah.
that's what I think that if you see somebody in need, you sort of feel empathetic, don't you, when you want to help. So instead of hiding behind this, I'm all right, not asking. I spoke to somebody yesterday about doing this podcast, and she said, "Oh, I never ask. I don't like asking." I said, "I understand, but people will relate more and feel more connected
Absolutely.
if you show that vulnerability, and
Yeah.
then you get, of course, you're not self-limiting yourself, because if you think about things, if I hadn't asked for the help with the biscuit chandelier, then I wouldn't have been able to do the biscuit chandelier. I just didn't have it then.
Yeah.
And take that into smaller things, I mean, technology, for example. I'm, I'm not of the age when this was taught in schools or anything. So I've been trying to catch up with life, to
Yeah.
keep up with it. But sometimes I say, I should please just help me. And by asking, it enables me to move forward and learn the skills then to take them forward myself. Like, for example, when I first got the first smartphone, when I moved off from the other ones that you used to just text on, and
Yeah.
it nearly went in the dustbin. I brought it home. I didn't know about how to use your finger to move around. I didn't know about the three dots for sharing. I didn't know anything. And I was absolutely at my wit's end. The oldest daughter happened to be at home, and she spent half a day at her behest. She could see how stressed I was. And she showed me the basics. And it was like the light bulbs were lighting up my life. I
Yeah.
thought,
Yeah.
wow, is that? That's interesting. And now, of course, I show people. So that I didn't stop her from showing me because of pride or whatever else might have been there. Because what I didn't want to limit myself to stop
Yeah.
the learning process, and now I can actually help other people with some aspects, believe it or not, of the smartphone. So that's
Yeah.
fascinating, isn't it? I can do
Yeah.
that. I can
So
help you out there.
yeah, so asking is really empowering, isn't it? So your daughter empowered you, and then that ripple effect goes on to you
Yes.
empowering
Yes.
other people. I think certainly in the group, it seems that some people think that either they shouldn't ask, or another thing that maybe they're asking the same thing over and over again, particularly with things like smartphones. My thing for a long time was trying to transfer music. I run a choir, and I was trying to transfer music from one device to another. And I generally don't swear, but oh my goodness, the family would want to leave the
Sometimes
house when I was trying to transfer music. And it didn't matter how many times I asked, it wasn't working for me. And I think sometimes people just get frustrated and give up. But again, you didn't do that. You've persevered with it.
Yeah, it's a natural thing sometimes to just want to throw the towel in, just say stuff it. But no, I mean, the part of learning and teaching, isn't it, that it's all the small chunks in the big picture, and taking manageable steps, and then repeating. You only learn anything by doing it. And
Yeah.
eventually, once you've done it, once you've successfully done it yourself,
Yeah.
you've asked for the help, you've taken it on, and then you've done it. And then usually the penny finally drops. It might take a few bits of practice, but you do by doing it. You must do it yourself. It's no good. My husband used to be terrible when I was asking him for help. He wasn't all that good at showing me how to use a computer. And he'd always be going on the keyboard and going, you do this, this, this. I said, no, 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 no,
Yeah.
no, slow down, slow down. I'm asking you to let me explain and let me do it. I must do it. The actual
Yes.
physical work. That's a teaching thing, isn't it? How you learn things, I suppose.
Yeah.
But yes. Anyway, so we're veering off a little bit there, but asking, it's a wonderful thing. It makes you feel more sort of productive, and then you can love yourself more because you've got those achievements.
Yeah.
And I haven't met anybody that's inferred that they feel it's a burden. This very morning, I spoke to my younger daughter. We're struggling to get my Amazon listing for a book, and it's been very complex. And she's taken it on. Actually, she's been doing it. And I said to her, so we had a conversation on the phone earlier today, and I said, "Oh, you must be getting fed up with this." She went, "No, Mum, it's absolutely fine. I've got the time. I can
Yeah.
help you. I'm happy. Do not worry. It's a great sense of achievement when I've actually helped you and we've got this done together. And she doesn't feel that I'm sort of asking her yet again for more help. So
Yeah. So I wonder if we forget how much we might be empowering other people by asking for help, because it's a connection, isn't it, with somebody else. That's what you were saying earlier on, that when you ask, you connect with somebody else and you reach out to them. And when if you physically reach out to someone, with your hand. You're kind of offering them something, and if they know you well, they're going to take it. And I think we forget that actually by us asking, we're enabling somebody else to
exactly. That is
give us what we
exactly
need.
how I feel. Yeah, all the way through. You know, I've got some I've got some very close cousins at the moment, and this afternoon they're having a meeting because one of my cousins unfortunately passed last week, and they're setting things up, you know, doing what they need to do. And I said on this with the WhatsApp group we share, and I said, oh, you know, perhaps you won't want my help this afternoon. So I was sort of asking them. I was saying I didn't want to push in where I perhaps. So I just said, perhaps, you know, I know you're having this meeting this afternoon. You might not feel that I need to be there because it's their brother and just my cousin. But if you want, I'm happy to attend. And they came straight back and went, "Oh, Karen, you know, your contributions to what we should do. I think we're talking about the wake and what we might do and the celebration of life. You know, it would be greatly appreciated. Please, if you can make it come." So, you know, that's another thing. Sometimes, you know, you don't want to ask.
Yes.
If if you need the help, it's like a double-edged thing.
Yeah. Condolences. I'm sorry to hear about that. It does lead me on a little bit to more and more people are talking about unsolicited advice, and that always worries me because I'm somebody that wants to help people. I'm somebody that wants to fix people a lot of the time, and I'm working through that because I know a lot of the time that's not healthy for me or the other person. But that idea of what you were saying is, do you want my help? And you can have it if it's helpful. That gave them the opportunity to say, no, actually, we've got what we need. But
I think it's the way you phrase that, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
You want to offer your hand, but not, you know. So I allowed them the option.
Yes.
But actually, it was great. Of course, and then when they said to me, "We'd love you to contribute," I felt great. Of
Yes.
course, that's on the other side, isn't it? They would like my help because they know I've
Yes.
got experience with these sort of things. So I'm great. I'm thinking lovely, and I feel included in
Yes.
that decision making and that, you know, type of thing. So it does really definitely work. But what you're saying about over helping, I think as a mother, I definitely, with my oldest girl, I look back now and realize that I used to do everything for her without asking her, you know,
Yes.
what she'd like to do. You know, I put in for her driving lessons. I put in for driving tests. I did all the forms. I did all this. I don't know, maybe. And, you know, looking back on it, I mean, she's a perfectly independent person now, of course, but I think she actually let me then, and then she didn't evolve and grow. And in hindsight, I should have encouraged rather than done. So, you know, so people
Yeah.
get the skills themselves faster, perhaps.
Yeah. I wonder if, as parents, there can be a real assumption, can't there, that these children will definitely need our help, and there's no way that they'll be able to do it on their own. I remember I've had long COVID for 3 years, and it's completely changed my life. It's meant I can't walk very far often. And I used to walk my son to school. That was one of the favourite parts of the day. And when we got him to year 5 last year, I remember thinking, I'm going to have to set up a whole support group of people that are going to walk him to school, because I know he can walk to school on his own, but he's not going to want to. And we got the letter home saying they can walk to school on their own. And it was the making of him. He absolutely loves the independence of walking to school. And if I'd set up a massive group and said, right, Seb, Monday this person's coming, Tuesday this person's coming, he would have lost all that independence, or there would have been a battle, because he would be saying, no. And I'd be saying, no, Seb, you know. And it's that allowing people to ask you, isn't it? And make mistakes.
That's a very big thing to be able
It's
to
a
do
big
and
thing.
accept.
It is. Yeah. It is, because you feel like it reflects on you. I think as a parent, the number of times recently I've said to Seb, you need to do X, Y, and Z, because otherwise people are going to say your parents aren't looking after you.
I understand that, because when I've got, as I said earlier, I've got the 2 girls, but when I had the oldest one, I was a single mother, and
Right.
I wasn't married either.
Yeah.
And that felt back to me, that felt very. I was still slightly ashamed or worried what people would think of me, because this was.
Right.
I mean, it's not in Dick's days. We're not talking the Victorian
Yeah.
era.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It was the early 1980s, and I felt there was some stigma.
Yes.
So to override that, I think I became almost too. How could I put it? I made sure I looked very formal and official, and and I always went out with my handbag and everything, and I had all my
Yeah.
makeup. And I wanted to make sure that nobody thought, and I went to work. I got a job because I wanted people to think, oh, she's not scrounging me. Look at her, and all. It was very difficult. And then with my daughter, because I wanted her to not have any worries or stigma. Then I felt I overcompensated sometimes.
Right.
Um, and that's where I perhaps did so much, because I wanted her to reflect well on me as well, so that nobody would look down on us. And I mean, I don't know whether they did even then, but that was how I felt concerned about that. But those days are gone, I think, fortunately. Fortunately.
What a delicious word to be getting our teeth into with Karen today. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit giddy. If you too are a little bit giddy having listened to the podcast, please share it with your friends. Give us a 5-star rating on your favourite music platform, and make sure that you tell other people all about us. Back to the episode. Yeah, so you're just talking about, it's almost putting the armour on, wasn't it, of that single mum.
Way of explaining it. Yeah.
Yeah. And saying, no, I don't need help. I've got this. I'm absolutely know exactly what I'm doing.
I'm not a drain on anybody's time or resources or anything. I'm independent.
Yes.
I can manage alone. Back
Yeah.
then, couldn't have got. I mean, I did have family help, but from in terms of outside people, school teachers and things, I wanted to stand alone and be, and my daughter, she was dyslexic, but of course it took her to be at university in a creative environment to actually get that diagnosis. So that was a concern, because of course she was having special help, but they didn't about the dyslexia. So she started to feel worried, and I was worried, and it was a difficult time. I've learnt a lot since those days, certainly.
Yeah. In terms of things like dyslexia and ADHD and things like that, I wonder if actually as a society we are getting better at asking for help in terms of that. It seems a lot more people are saying, I need a test for this. Can you help me with that? I'm reaching out for
exactly
financial support. So I think in
there
terms
might
of
have
that,
been. I think the word I was looking for was a stigma. I think it was looked down, or we felt, oh right. Whereas now, of course, we've overcome those sort of prejudices, if you like, and allows people to ask for the help that they feel that they need.
Yes, and that has been so important. I wanted to take you back a little bit to the beginning kind of your bake-off journey. So you proudly say that you decided to do it when you were 60, and you went through the audition process. How did it feel to do that initial ask? Because that's a big ask, isn't it? You're literally putting all your information down and saying, can I be in the bake-off? How did that kind of feel?
Well, it was a bit weird actually, because this is a jump from the topic a little bit, because I wasn't very. I didn't have many bakes in my repertoire, should I put it that way?
Right.
And I applied for the bake-off. So when I talk about this, people are often surprised, because they'll say, "Well, what on earth did you think you were doing then to put yourself into the lion's den with that Paul Hollywood chap?" How did that come about? So it was a bit of one of those things there. I jumped on and I thought, oh, I'll go with the flow with this application, not expecting, no expectation. So I know how many people apply every year. 25,000 people in my year to round it up. And of course, I didn't know how to bake really more than 4 things. I've worked out I could only bake. I could do a Victoria sponge. My mum showed me that when I was about 7. And I'd stuck with the Victoria sponge throughout my life. And I say to people, that cake can cover all, you know, you know,
Yeah.
all birthday parties and everything. And it makes cupcakes the same mixture. It's all right, all you need. And I could do some scones,
Yeah.
and I could do a Christmas cake, and I did know how to make short crust pastry. 4 things really, and those 4 things were perfectly good for my general life.
Mm.
So I've never got into anything else, but I did get into decorating. I got very into wanting to know how to make a cake pretty. So I started a little hobby, teaching myself off the internet and books how to do all the things you need to do to cover your Victoria sponge to make it look like you could sell it. I didn't sell anything actually,
Right.
but so it was nice. And I got quite reasonably good at it. And my daughter sent me the application. I think she just did it for a laugh because it come on, when they come on every year, it's
Yeah,
kind of.
yeah,
So she said it was topical. Oh, well, I'll send them on this. So she
yeah.
sent me the link, and I opened up my laptop and to have a look at it out of nosiness, really. And there was about 40 different things, categories that you had to be able to sort of say that you've got some skills at. And I was thinking, looking down, scanning down, I can't do any of these apart from those 4 I mentioned. And I was actually just closing my laptop down, and I got this like eureka moment. And I thought, wait a minute though, Karen, you can do all sorts. And I opened it up and I thought, how hard is it though going to be to teach myself? I need to be able to do these things before I can send the application. There's an application deadline of
Yeah.
2 months down the line. So I had 2 months. So I jumped up, came down, and I got that weird head on where, right, okay, I'm on it. Like I've written a book in 3 months, I've done it. Done.
Wow.
And I taught myself. I worked really, really hard. I'm not trying to underestimate how
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
it is. But in 2 months' time, I ticked every box on that list, and I sent the application in. Not really thinking like you send off for your Blue Peter badge and you don't get one or whatever it is necessarily. But I'd sent it in, and I was absolutely astonished when I got a call because I'd
Wow.
forgotten about it. And the next thing is after quite a long process, but like then when it's like it's a snowball,
Yeah,
everyone's
yeah.
getting fatter and fatter as it's rolling, and it's going faster and faster down the hill, and I'm on this snowball, and then I found myself next news. I was stood in the tent,
Wow.
thinking, "What am I doing here?" Because I've only done hot water crust pastry once in my life. I only did it once when I was doing that practice bake, and I'm on pastry week. Oh wow, or
Wow.
whatever. So I don't know. That was a bit of a one-time out wonder. So it wasn't anything. I just didn't expect it to come off. What a roller coaster. Um, but then it come into what we'll be talking about earlier, of course, was once I did get picked, then it became reality. And then I needed every bit of help that I could put my hands on because I didn't have the confidence anyway.
Wow.
But I didn't want to give in because I sort of fancied it. I wanted
Yeah.
the challenge. I wanted to see what it was like on telly,
Yeah.
and in that iconic program. So I really wanted to claw my way in and do it properly, but I needed help in lots and lots and lots of ways. As I've already said, and it wasn't just the chandelier. To be honest, it was every showstopper I did. It was
Yeah.
like, oh help! What?
They are massive, aren't they? The
And sometimes
showstoppers.
it's just being able to ask for somebody's time to discuss something, to
Yeah.
air your feelings.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily all the time asking for physical or practical help.
Yes.
Sometimes it's just emotional help.
Yes.
Somebody's just to let you talk, and then off you. It could be at the end of the phone, or it could be, face to face. So that was really important, and that got me through it, and has continued to get me through from that time to now, having
Yeah.
done lots, finding myself in lots of unusual, to me, environments and situations,
Yeah.
asking help as I go
Yeah.
along.
And it's interesting. It matters who you ask as well, doesn't it? Because if you were doing the biscuit chandelier and you said to Paul Hollywood while you were being filmed, Paul, how am I going to do this chandelier? Please, can you help me? Obviously, he's not allowed to tell you, is he?
Oh,
But when you asked your husband and your daughters at the right time in the right place before you had to do the chandelier, so not while you were being filmed on the
yeah,
day and not asking the head judge, then you got all the support you needed. So I wonder, there's an element of wisdom, and obviously it's a very silly example, but there's an element of wisdom and knowing who you're asking the right
You're right,
people.
because you just putting a different on the same thing. Going back to school days when I was sitting like the regular exams when you were a teenager doing your GCSEs or whatever it is you've got. You have all the time in the world leading up to that examination, which you've got to sit. You sit there at a desk. You've
Yeah,
got the clock and you can't speak and you've got to take note. You can't take notes in and
yeah,
the rules. But before getting to that situation, you have ample opportunity to ask teachers, ask your friends, ask your parents, ask Google, ask whoever you want for help with whatever it is that's bothering you. So yes, you go to take your driving test. You can't ask the examiner,
yes,
about the highway code, but you can ask as many people to test you
yes.
before you get to that situation. So it is knowing the boundaries, isn't it?
Yeah. And also I think it's being prepared, isn't it? And knowing, well, my exam's in 3 months, so I need to ask these questions now rather than waiting till the day before and cramming like I always used to do.
Well, we all have our different ways with exams, that's for sure. Some people
Absolutely.
I know can just go in and then, oh, I haven't revised, I haven't revised. Oh, no, 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 and they come up tops, don't they? There's always that one friend
Yes.
that does
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That
Funny.
wasn't me. No. I was the one that crammed the night before and then got in and said, oh my goodness, we haven't studied this one. This was not what thought they were going to ask me at all. But I digress. So I would like to ask you about your new book,
Oh,
about
yeah.
camper vans, about making food on the go, on the move, and tell me all.
About how to write a book. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, asking about that. Well, I asked a lot of people ask me. I'm trying to emphasize the word because that is the word of the day, isn't it? So
Mm,
a lot of people asked me in the last few years since Bake Off, when I've been talking about Bake Off and talking about the story of Bake Off and also the story of we've all got histories, we've all got interests, and
yeah,
we've
yeah.
all got a story, and we're all interesting people. Um, so it's the way you tell them, though, isn't it? So
Oh
I
yeah,
tell
yeah.
the story. You should write a book. Are you going to write a book? And I've said, absolutely, I don't think so. Absolutely not, really. I should have
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
I
yeah,
don't think so. What would I write a book? And I'm not going to write one on baking. I'm not going to do that. That's not something that appeals to me. All that ounces and conversion tables and all the things that you've got to be very precise with baking. It's a
yeah.
scientific form. But I'm interested in cooking. So I always said, no, I don't think so. And then I was asked if I would like to borrow a
Uh-huh.
brand new motorhome. Part of
Oh
being part
wow.
of my Bake Off journey, I do a bit of blogging and I find myself very, very fortunate. Things often, and I reach out and take them and
Yeah.
say thank you very much. So I was asked if I'd like to have this opportunity, and I said yeah. And I thought then, actually, this is a good idea to make a book of. I can write a book about the trip, not just the cooking. Let's do a combination of 30 days I'm going to be traveling. We're going to have 30 meals that are suitable for cooking in a caravan, motorhome, camper van, on a stove, on a tent, in your house, wherever you want, with limited time.
Yeah.
You don't want to use only gas bottle if you're in that situation. You don't want to
Uh-huh.
use an empty gas bottle. And limited equipment because you
Yeah.
don't take loads of gadgets. So that was fundamentally it. And I started writing it in earnest in April, and it was sent to print at the end of July, and I received 1,500 copies of my beautiful hardbacked, very, very gorgeous book on my drive on 3 pallets last week. And I think that my project manager, who I
Yeah.
asked somebody, basically, I was at the NEC at the Caravan and Motorhome Show in February when the idea of it was starting to tweak in my head a little bit, this story of this book. And I was introduced to a person I hadn't met before, a lady called Sammy Fairclough, and she'd written a book about caravans.
Yeah.
So we got in conversation, and I asked her, would you mind me asking you
Yeah.
about how you did it? She said, no, give me a call. So when I got home, I sent her a message and said, did you mean it? Can I pick your brains? And pick I did. And I asked her who, how, what. Well, I asked her all those things, the faithful servants that I have, Carol. Who, what, when, where, why, which, and how. if you use those words to start your sentences when you're speaking to people, then they're open, aren't they?
Okay, can you
Yeah.
just do that sentence? Can you say
So
that sentence again?
years ago, I was a trainer back in I used to train people in customer service, and it was, I have 7 faithful servants. I think this is always, I had 7 faithful servants. They taught me all I know. Their names are who, what, when, where, why, which, and how. All of those words, if you're in conversation with somebody, especially new people, if you want to get a really good conversation, a good vibe going, if you try to use those words as openers, you'll find out more about them. And of course, people love to be not talked at, but to tell you things.
Yes.
So if you're careful, if you're a good questioner, you can draw things out of people. But
Yeah.
in my case, with Sammy, and I wanted to know about books, I used all those. Who did you do? What did you do? How did that happen? Why did you do that? I used all these things, and I got all the information from her. And I've acknowledged her in the book as well at the end. And I've said, I acknowledge Sammy Fairclough. She helped me put this book together along with my team. She introduced me. I asked her, who did you use, please, as your project manager? How did you put your things on Amazon? What did you do next? How did you get an ISBN number, the barcode?
Yeah.
And she gave me all that information. And I'd only met her once.
Wow.
Parted that to me.
Wow.
Yes,
That's
so
amazing.
it was really good. And that is what enabled me, because I didn't know how to write a book. I didn't know how you published. I didn't know what was involved. And if I'd not got in conversation with her and she hadn't been happy to help me,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able. Well, I would, but I don't think it would have taken a long time for me to gather that information
Yeah.
myself and the
Yeah.
confidence to do it.
Yeah. I was going to say backpedal, but we're talking about caravan. So let's reverse slightly.
Reverse.
Yeah. Because somebody asked you if you wanted to borrow their caravan. And at that point, you could have said, no, thank you. And that would have been the end of that, wouldn't it, Karen? No book, no questions, no connection with Sammy, no learning.
Well, exactly. I think that's by if you don't, it's self-limiting, isn't it? By not
yeah,
accepting the help as well, just as you ask for help, if help is offered, consider it, don't discard it, because it's everybody benefits.
yes,
That it's a double thing. Everybody
yes,
from it, and I look what I've got. I mean, we have to be clear. We do have a caravan, but I wanted to try out a motorhome,
yes, yeah,
and it was the motorhome that was offered, and that was such an amazing opportunity because there are a lot of money. If you're on a limited budget, I wouldn't have the budget to have hired one or
mm,
tried one out for size, and I wanted to see how it was to go into Europe doing this hopping from campsite to campsite, which you can't do as easily in a caravan because it's slower. You've got other
yeah,
issues there.
yeah,
So I wanted the motorhome experience. Yes, so I snapped up that offer, and I will ask now, may I do it again, please? Because of
yeah,
course, what does the person get? They offered it because of course it's nice. They offered it, and I talk about the experience as I'm talking about it with you. And I used this motorhome. This is what I did, and they included it in the book. And then I can ask again, may I borrow it? I have no worries about asking because
yeah.
I know they're genuinely offering. They wouldn't offer that if they didn't want you to take it. So I said, yes, please, and just say thank you. I don't think you don't have to feel indebted, terribly indebted. You might say, oh, I'm always indebted to you. That's a playful thing. You don't need to feel that. Nobody wants you to feel that. You give graciously and you receive.
And I love that because I do wonder again if that's a bit of a barrier to asking, that you then feel like, oh, well, if I ask, then I'm going to have to do something
Yeah.
in return. And at times you'll absolutely be in that position to do that. But for a lot of people, they're just not, or they think that they have to give back in a specific way and they're not able to do that. So then they can't do it at all.
Yes, I'm,
Whereas,
I'm sure. I'm sure some people do feel that way,
yeah,
and I'm sure there are some people out there who do count how many. There might be people who say, "Oh, I helped you. Help me back."
yeah, yeah, yeah,
There's a lot of different people that populate the planet, but most people that I know, they give graciously, and we all know that we have skills. And at some point in the future, it may not be this week, it might not be next, it could be in 10 years' time, but there will be a time when you will be able to offer your help back and give it. There'll be some skills and things that you have in your sort of reservoir of knowledge. It can be
Yes.
practical skills, it can be emotional skills, it can be, like my husband, he's got loads of skills. He doesn't need to offer them every day, but if our neighbour over the way had a flat tire and she was struggling, he would be able to go. I haven't got those skills
Yeah.
necessarily.
Yeah.
I could go and do something else. We all have a wealth
Yes.
things that we can offer, small or large, it doesn't matter. They'll come in useful one day to
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah. And just touching on, because I so pleased that I met you in a business women's group, and there's a lot of feeling there that you can give in kind, can't you? So, particularly if we're in a new business, you don't have a lot of revenue coming in, but to be able to give in other ways. Well, I can't do this, but I can do that. And it's about maybe needing to be a little bit creative sometimes to realize that there are different ways that you can give. And
there's somebody that lives, we didn't know, in the group that we both members of. There's somebody that I didn't know lived on the same housing estate as me, and because she saw a video that I'd made and she thought, oh, I recognise that man. You live on that. Anyway, we've connected like that as well.
Lovely.
But I didn't know that she had chickens in her back garden, and she's often got an abundance of eggs. So, it's great.
Wow.
He said,
Yeah.
oh, wow. I said, yes, please.
Yeah.
That's it's just nice to
Yeah.
just connect like that, really, over small things often. And then I can take her something if I've made anything with them and drop it in. It's a bit like the olden days, isn't it? When I think you paid with acorns or no, I think it was, but no, there was a time when everybody before. I think I'm going back, when I was a child, I said to my mum, why do we need money? I
Yeah.
remember that. Why do we need money? Because if we didn't have money, we could all give our different things. And she said, I think you're thinking like a communist. I said, I don't know what one of those is, Mum. She said, well, I think I'll tell you when you're grown up a bit. But I was thinking, if my dad's a joiner and my mum makes clothes, Mrs. Whale over there, she's good at cooking. So Farmer Giles down the way does this. And my little simplistic mind was thinking, if we all gave each other our things, then we could all live happily ever after
But
anyway.
that's brilliant.
I think there were probably 6 or something.
Excellent. A good old simplistic minds. Let's have more of that. Anyway, carry on.
Yes. So where are we? Asking. So yes, ask the questions as well. Sometimes people are very asking is 2 ways. So I can ask for help, or I can ask if you need things, or ask how you are, or ask with the questions that I've talked about there to draw people in and make them feel comfortable. I think,
Yeah.
You might go to somewhere. I'm reasonably confident, or at least I appear to be on the outside. You never know what's ticking away underneath.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can blag it, but some people can't. And I think it's great if you recognise that and really try to ask people questions, and that makes them feel more relaxed and more comfortable,
Yeah.
and enjoy themselves more. And then you can have a proper relationship with each other.
Yeah, love it. Karen, we're nearly at the end of the podcast, which I'm really sad about because I could talk about it for ages. But we do always have a little challenge for people listening. So my challenge for listeners today is simply, what do you need to ask? Is there something that you need to know about? Is there some help that you need? Do you need to reach out to someone? And what's really stopping you? If we've talked about all these amazing things that people get back when they're asked to help. So don't be afraid to ask, because you'll receive. I think. Karen, have you got anything to add to that?
Well, no,
challenge?
I was just listening very carefully to that, and I completely think it's a brilliant thing to put out to listeners, really. What is it that you're bothered about, and who would be the person? If you just, like, as an exercise, if you thought about the one thing that you might need to ask, you might be thinking, I'd like to ask Karen about that Victoria sponge because I've never made one. So if that's the case, ask yourself, why aren't you sending me a message then?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
on, so you ask me and I'll give you that information if I can. I'll happily impart it. It's great because I feel great. People asking me my advice. Whoa, Karen from Featherstone, somebody's asking me. It makes me feel brilliant.
Yeah.
So ask yourself what it is, who could help me, and have a little test out and see what happens. I think.
Lovely. So, Karen, we come to the most nerve-wracking part of the podcast now, which is that I always do an on-the-spot poem for our guests. So I'm just going to take a couple of seconds just to think about what we've said, and then I'll share this poem with you.
Okay.
It's good to ask. There might be a task that you don't know yet. Your needs unmet until you connect. And with respect, you reach out and you say, can you help? And the person smiles, and the miles and miles that you thought were between you just lessen. And you learn a lesson and you grow together. And through the different types of weather, you move into a new place, a new space where you feel empowered and you grow. And you know that it was good to ask.
Wow.
There you go.
Absolutely brilliant. Well done, you.
Thank you. My guests inspire me. And you painted so many pictures. There were so many nuggets in. What I love most about interviewing people is I get to listen back, and I get to listen back first. Well, after my producer. So I'm really excited. I'm going to listen with a notebook and write down all the things that you've been saying. I am so pleased that I asked you to be on my podcast. Thank you for being so generous.
Carol, I'm so pleased you asked me because I've enjoyed it beyond measure. I didn't know how it would work out, and it's been really relaxing, and I've enjoyed it so much. So thank you for asking.
That's wonderful. Karen, thank you so much. Just before we go, all of your links will be in the show notes. Your book, you talk about your wonderful hardcover book. I need a copy of that, so I'm going to get on Amazon. But people
get one on my website, Carol. It's a bit cheaper, probably.
Okay, yeah. So we'll make sure we've got all those links for you.
Yeah.
And Karen, thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.